myself, we would like to express our profound gratitude to the Board of Trustees, Dr. Wojciechowski, Janae, John Davies. I haven't seen him today.
He is, the early weather caused him to be gone.
For allowing us to be this year's Executive in Residence for Pratt Community College. And while I have the podium, I would also like to say that Becky and I, as lifelong residents, business owners, property owners here in Pratt, we would like to express our support to PCC for its mission, not only for the economic viability it presents for our community, but for the social and cultural opportunities it shares with our community. To the trustees, Dr. Wojciechowski, administration, faculty, staff, we tip our hats to you for a purpose well served and a job well done. A few weeks ago, Janae came down to our restaurant to visit with Becky and I. She came to inform us that we had been selected as the recipients of this award. She proceeded to give us a brief history of the award, the life and legacy of Lloyd Davies, the loyal continued support of John Davies for the program, the participation of the business students, history of the past recipients. She went on to discuss the events of the day, President's Coffee, convocation, luncheon that ensues. We were having a wonderful discussion, wonderful day, feeling very good. And then I heard her say, speech. And she continued a little bit further and she said 30 minutes. And I said, and as she continued, I absorbed all that and started thinking about it, and I thought, that's going to be easy, piece of cake. But there's 2 months. We'll take that 30 minutes, we'll cut it in half, split it right down the middle, 50-50, even Steven, just like we do everything. That's 5 minutes for me and 25 for Becky. So here we go. I'm an independent restaurateur. Have been for 30 years, initially partnering with my father, Bob Sr. The last 22 years, Becky and I on our own. With the expansion of Legends, we brought our son Cody and Shane McGreevy into our business as junior partners. The Uptown Cafe was initially conceived in 1968, 44 years ago. Small building on East 3rd Street here in Pratt. Had a seating capacity of 40. It was a breakfast, lunch, / coffee shop concept. Open from 6 to 2. Had 5 employees, 2 cooks, 2 waitresses, 1 dishwasher. Today, we bring 500 seats to bear in this market, operate 3 restaurant concepts at 2 separate locations, and generate an annual payroll of $800,000 a year. 44 years in the restaurant business, in the retail world, is a very, very long time for any type of business. And I salute all those who have endured, survived, and succeeded for any amount of time. For an independent restaurant operation, 44 years is an eternity. in the sense that it's practically unheard of. Some might come to mind that you know of as you consider that have been operating for that long. The brick and mortar remains the same, but very seldom has the ownership remained intact for that period of time. To be owned and operated and held by the same family for 44 years is a very, very rare thing in our industry. Food industry research reveals that 3 out of 4 independent restaurant startups fail before the end of the 3rd year. That's a staggering number. 75 out of 100 won't see their 3rd birthday. The 1 in 4 that breaches that milestone only has a 20% chance of seeing its 6th year. It pleases me to tell you this, that in exactly 1 week from today, March 15th, Legends will celebrate its 6th year in business as an independent restaurant. Saying those things is rather awkward. It sounds somewhat boastful, and that was not the intent. I mentioned those things to share with you what I consider to be the most significant accomplishment for our family and our business, and that is that for 44 years, we have owned, operated, and held in the same family our restaurants, transitioned that ownership from one generation to the next and to the next. Sometimes it seems perhaps as if we've prematurely emerged into our 4th generation. When my 5-year-old granddaughter tells me what to do, when to do it, why to do it, where to do it, how to do it, I do it every time. So we're moving forward. Thinking the past few weeks, past few days, what I might say to you young people who have decided to pursue a path in business at this time in your lives, something that might be pertinent, interesting, stimulating, provoke a question, come to mind down the road. I considered discussing the essential concepts, strategies, models of the restaurant industry, how critical it is to become proficient in areas of accounting, marketing, human resource, cash flow management, inventory controls, quality assurance, projections, demographics, competitive analyses, systemic efficiencies, how the money flows. And as I considered all those things, I thought those are things that you guys probably talk about, study and research every day, probably earlier this morning, later today. It's all stuff you can find online in a textbook. It's all typical business speak. It's fascinating when you're involved in it. Fascinating when it relates to your business, your ideas, your efforts, but perhaps in a forum like this with young people that might be a little dry, impersonal, removed, abstract. So I want to take this discussion into the heart and the soul and the spirit of a restaurant operation. Discuss things that you can't see, that you don't know about, things that aren't apparent, go unnoticed, things you won't find online in a textbook. You can't research these elements. Has anyone here in the audience, any of you kids ever been involved in a restaurant, worked in a restaurant? Few. Well, maybe some of this will resonate. Actually, that surprised the state of Kansas. Over 200,000 people in the state of Kansas work in independent restaurants. That figures out to about 1 in every 25 people in the state of Kansas. So those numbers there kind of surprise me. Interesting. The restaurant business is a very, very intense business. It's fast-paced, high-speed, physical. It's emotional, pressure-packed, and combustible. It's time-consuming, exhausting, fiercely competitive, fickle, volatile, and relentless. And that's what makes it good. The restaurant business is a series of sudden bursts every day where hundreds of consumers, dozens of staff members collide and engage hundreds of transactions, deals, and negotiations, each involving its own critical time frame and set of sequences, and where every move is done in quick step. Our restaurant downtown compounds all that by executing 2 menus, 2 sets of products, 2 sets of staff, 2 clientele bases simultaneously. It's natural in a setting like that emotion sometimes can run high and the adrenaline kicks in. And we don't want you to know that or to see that, because we are in the feel-good business. We want you to enjoy your visit, your company, and your wine. But behind those doors and on the other side of that wall, there's a flurry of intense activity and events occurring that stimulate and challenge the full gamut of emotions, senses, and intellect. The restaurant business is a fiercely competitive business. Competition is inherent in any business. It's part of business. You have to understand it, accept it, and deal with it. But the restaurant business takes competition to the highest level and the highest degree. Here in Pratt, we have 34 restaurant venues. That's 34 players in the game. 34 entities competing for the biggest piece of the pie. Every day, every core period, every lunch, every evening. Imagine when I say that, if there were 34 grocery stores here in Pratt, 34 lumber yards, 34 banks, 34 movie theaters. You can imagine how intense that competitive arena would be. And that's the world that restaurants exist in and live in every day. Restaurants compete, like other businesses do, for everything with their competitors, consumers, employees, products, purveyors, market share, sponsorships. It's a very, very competitive business, and that's what makes it good. You would think that, maybe I shouldn't say this, but you would think as much as we in the restaurant business have in common, we and our competitors, we share the same interests, livelihoods, professions, schedules, associates. We don't like each other very much. That's just how the game is played. It's always 1 against 33. Restaurants have become very complex and sophisticated businesses. All businesses are much more complex and sophisticated than they were. Not too many years ago, I remember we had a milkman that would come to the back of our restaurant and holler in, "You guys need any milk?" "Yeah, we'll take 4 gallons." Today, products and supplies are negotiated for with annual contracts that involve hundreds of thousands of dollars, quotas, rebates, performance clauses, auditing requirements, exclusivity issues, and are tied to market indexes and futures. Much different than the milkman at the back door. Menus are designed to the analytical processes and subliminal tendencies of the human brain now. Technology now tells us what our expected sales, traffic counts, inventory levels should be at the end of each and every day. What our sales, food cost, labor costs are at any point of the day. We can access precisely where we are in physical fashion at any minute, moment of the day. We can visually monitor and interact with our business from anywhere in the world on our cell phones now. I haven't really tried that yet, but we can do it. Marketing is shifting from radio, TV, newspaper to the social media. You can pay your food and bar tab now through your PayPal account. And products and supplies now come from around the world. Political, economic, and weather events halfway around the globe influence price, availability, and quality. I can't find any asparagus. Asparagus grows around here everywhere. People grow in their gardens. It grows down on the river. It grows in Lemons Park. Can't find any asparagus. Most of the asparagus supply for the U.S. now comes from Peru. And a weather event last summer in Peru caused a shortage for the world's supply of asparagus. Can't find asparagus. Global event now. Used to buy it from the guy at the back door. Things are changing in the restaurant world. The future for the restaurant business holds only one certainty, and that is that it will be ever-changing, as it always has been. The corporates and the chains will become more extensive. The world food supply will become an issue that affects the entire food industry in the entire world. Restaurants will be smaller, following the leads of the big box retailers. Their new smaller concepts are beginning to penetrate the market, providing a more intimate setting for the consumer, easier to operate, cheaper to build, cheaper to maintain. Technology will advance aggressively in areas to relieve the shortage of the restaurant industry workforce. Typically, in the restaurant industry, the unemployment rate is below 2%. It's a very difficult industry to solicit, retain, secure good people, capable people. The independent sector that we are in, that we've been in for 44 years, will diminish. Pressure from the corporate and the chains is going to pervade every market. We'll need to be more astute, more nimble, more advanced, more flexible. At our restaurant, we believe our business concepts and philosophies will enable us to stay in the game for many, many more years. We believe as the restaurant business changes and evolves, we will be well positioned to evolve with it, especially due to the team of young talent we have brought into our business: Cody, Shane, Lance Steiner. Sam Walton once shared this advice: surround yourself with the best people and get the best out of those people. It's a simple model for a winning formula in any venture, he seems to have done all right. I think I'll pay attention to that. Probably gone on far too long. It felt like 45 minutes at least. I think everybody's getting hungry. Any questions from anyone? Would love to answer anything. And this is always an awkward moment, so I'm just going to stand here and endure it.
I got one for you, Bobby.
Oh, yes, sir.
Would you do it again?
Yes, sir. Loved every minute of it. I love the excitement, the challenge. We've been very, very fortunate here at Pratt. The restaurant business is something that, unless you've been in it and involved in it, it can grab a hold of you. It's been very satisfying for me, Becky, our family. Yes, sir, I would. Ken, I thought I saw you.
You have great steaks. How do you do that?
Well, my good cows. And then there's a few other secrets that we might hold on to. Yes, sir.
What was the process going into citing open lessons? What did you look at? How did you make that decision?
Well, there are many processes, and we looked at it for a very long time, and probably many in the audience here will recall that it seemed like it took forever. But primarily, Legends exist in a different retail environment than my restaurants downtown do. The economic activity on the east side of town, particularly the highway, is a totally different market than what I am able to penetrate downtown. We felt like we could go out there with an appropriate concept, succeed without creating a negative impact on our operation downtown and on Main Street. And we designed that restaurant to offer elements, food offerings that were not available at our other restaurants, and we set that restaurant up so that many of the menu items that it presented were not available downtown. We tried not to compete. Initially, when we opened that restaurant up, we didn't sell steaks out there. We didn't sell hard liquor, just 3-2 beer. We wanted to keep things separate enough that we wouldn't create a competitive element within our own operation. At that time, also, Legends opened initially as a non-smoking venue, which I can't recall how many places in town might have been set up in that fashion, but there weren't very many. That was another difference that we could bring to bear in the market. And so we researched things very well. We generated a business plan that took a couple of years to come up with. And it's been a very good thing for our company, and especially it has been a very good thing for Cody and Shane to be able to stay here in Pratt. We've generated a livelihood for those two families to raise their children and to live here in the town they grew up in. And that's a very significant thing for me. I'm really proud of that. How long, Angela? Yes.
Joyce Fry, and I teach human relations. We've been discussing interpersonal relationships in the workplace.
Yes.
Specifically, conflict management.
Ah.
How do you deal with conflict with your personnel?
Conflict between employees consumers and employees, or?
Yes. All.
Oh. Well, naturally, we try to keep all of that to a very minimum. And we basically have a understanding that that does not happen in our business. It's not allowed. Every employee is expected, when they come to work, to be respectful, cooperative, courteous with the people that they work for, whether you like them or not. That's just how you behave when you're at our restaurants, in the same fashion that you're expected to wear a certain kind of apparel. When you come to work, you're expected to behave in a certain manner, and nothing less is acceptable. It's dealt with quickly, swiftly. We don't have a problem with that. Any other questions? Students, got anything you want to know? Yeah.
Oh, what's your biggest competition restaurant-wise, and where do you get most of your products from?
Biggest competition
Here
here
in Pratt.
in Pratt? Well, biggest competition.
Other than yourself.
Well, yeah, that is something we monitor and measure every day. You go to work every day and you drive by the competitive entities that you're considering, and you check everybody out. I might not answer your question that the way